Hi, my name is Rebecca and welcome to Yarn and Pajamas. Today is day number 2 of Podcaster Spirit Week and it is Pajama Day and I'm in my pajamas, but in all fairness, I'm usually in my pajamas, but these are never before worn pajamas. They're brand new. I've never worn them. I'm not really sure what all it says, but it's all like cozy words like good night and Z's, star, good, good night. I guess that's what the good is for. Good night. So I found these in my closet. They still had the tags on them, and I thought, oh, this would be perfect for pajama day because it's a new pair of pajamas, seeing as they've probably seen me in all of my old pajamas. So yeah, so today I thought it's not about crochet, but it is like crochet related, sorta, kinda. So I'm going to talk about 6 spooky reads, 6 spooky books that you can read or listen to this spooky season. So if you like to read and you like to crochet, you know, you really can't do both at the same time unless you listen to an audiobook and then you can crochet. So you can combine the love of both of those worlds together into one, which is what I have been doing for the past year or so. Now, I will say that my friend Michelle, I met her through YouTube, through the comment section of my channel. So hi, Michelle. She is a librarian. So she says that reading a book and listening to a book are the same thing. So like it does all of the same things in your brain that, you know, reading a book, listening to a book does the same. So it's just as good to listen as it is to read. So I encourage you to pick up an audiobook and listen to it while you're crocheting. Now, I do use my library card to listen to books for free. It's free. There's an app called Libby, and it's powered by Overdrive. And all you do is once you download the Libby app, you just go and it'll be like, find your library. So you'll go and you'll find your library, and then you just put in your library card and boom, you're off to the races. So you can also download like ebooks too, like borrow ebooks. Like if you really want to read it, you can read it or listen, and it's completely free. All you have to have is a library card, and generally those are free. So it's completely free. So I'm going to tell you about 6 spooky books. I tried to do 5, but I just could not narrow the list from 6 to 5. So I'm like, we're just going to have to go for 6. So 6 spooky books that I recommend you listen to while you crochet this Halloween season. These are in no order. So the first one I want to talk about is The Final Girls by Riley Sager. I wrote down a little bit of a blurb here to tell you guys. It says, 10 years ago, college student Quincy Carpenter went on vacation with 5 friends and came back alone, the only survivor of a horror movie scale massacre. In an instant, she becomes a member of a club no one wants to belong to, a group of similar survivors known in the press as the Final Girls. So you're following Quincy from flashbacks to the night that the massacre happened and present day with what's going on with her and her life and the other Final Girls, because there are more Final Girls that you will meet that have had their own tragedies that they've endured. So this one was really good. It's Riley Sager's first novel as Riley Sager. I believe he writes under another name as well, but it was his first, I think, foray into this genre, and he does a really good job. He is one of my favorite authors, and I do have some other mentions. They are Home Before Dark and Lock Every Door. These two are great too. They have that very atmosphere of like spooky feeling. Probably, I should have picked Home Before Dark because it's more of like that spooky, like ghost story vibe. But Final Girls just always, it just has my heart right here because it was my first one that I read of his and I just loved it so good. But Home Before Dark and Lock Every Door also have those spooky vibes. All of his books are great, but these three have those spooky vibes. So the next one I want to talk about is The Night Sister by Jennifer McMahon. I believe is how you say her last name. I could be saying it wrong. But the blurb for this book says, once the thriving attraction of rural, oh, I cannot say this word, rural Vermont. That's so hard for me because I want to say rule, like a ruler. I want to say rule. Sorry. The Tower Motel stands in disrepair, alive only in the memories of Amy, Piper, and Piper's kid sister, Margot. The three played there as girls until the day their games uncovered something dark and twisted in the motel's past, something that ruined their friendships forever. This one was so good. I remember when I was reading The Night Sister that I just could not put it down. Like, I just did not want to stop reading at all. And I was like so upset because I had to stop because I had to get up for work the next day. And I was like, I'm not picking this book up again until it's the weekend. And I didn't because I knew that I would just want to continuously read straight through, which is what I done. So the next time I picked it up, I continued reading all the way through. It was so good. Jennifer McMahon is another one of my favorite authors. I have liked every book that she's written. They're just so captivating. I do have some other mentions from her that also have the spooky vibe to them, and that's The Drowning Kind and The Invited. Both of these books have like a spooky undertone to them. Even though that's not the central part of their book. But yeah. Okay. So the next story we're going to talk about is one of my favorites of all times. And that is The Elementals by Michael McDonald. Now this is an older book. I believe it was like out in maybe the late 80s or early 90s. But it says, on a split of land cut off by the Gulf, three Victorian summer houses stand against the encroaching sand. Two of the houses at Beldame are still used. The third house, filling with sand, is empty, except for the vicious horror which is shaping nightmares from nothingness that hangs in the dank, fetid air. So, this book, I remember reading this book a long time ago. I had went to my dad's house and someone had left it at his house and I just picked it up. Like, I think we went camping or something, and I remember I was like so scared reading that out in the dark forest. Like, everybody else was asleep. I was up reading with my little flashlight and I was like, oh my goodness. And for years, I tried to remember the name of this book, and I just could not remember the name of it. But I remember I would search for it almost every October without fail because I was like, oh, this book is just so scary and so good. And one year I finally found it. I was watching YouTube, and someone was talking about it on YouTube on one of their book channels. And I was like, that's it. That's the book that I have been searching for. So I went, I downloaded it, and I read it, and it was just as good the second time as it was the first time. I just really, really highly recommend it. And another mention from Michael McDonald is Cold Moon Over Babylon. It's another, like, really sets that spooky atmosphere. And it's like, they're like Southern Gothic novels. Oh, they're just so good. Okay, now my next one was very scary for me because it's about zombies. I'll just go ahead and put that up front there. but it's called Soulless by Christopher Golden. And I really like Christopher Golden too. He writes some pretty good books. I've read several of them and I've not been disappointed by any of them. So it says, in Times Square in New York City, the first ever mass seance is broadcasting live on Sunrise Morning Show. If it works, all the spirits of the departed on the other side will have just a brief window, just really a few minutes, to send a final message to their grieving loved ones. But things do not go as planned. So I remember reading this probably like when I first moved to Indiana, so probably about 10 or 11 years ago. And like I literally couldn't sleep at night. Yeah, it was, but you know, I'm that afraid of zombies. So yeah, so this was a really good book. Yeah, I recommend it. My fifth book here is A Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. So if anybody knows, Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. So, you know, he's got some of that horror novelness in his blood. But it says, an aging metal rock god named Judas Cone is a collector of the macabre, a cookbook for cannibals, a used hangman's noose, and a snuff film. But nothing he possesses is as unlikely or as dreadful as an item he learns is for sale on the internet. For $1,000, Judas will become the proud owner of a dead man's suit, said to be haunted by the deceased's restless spirit. But what the UPS driver delivers to his door is a black heart-shaped box. And it is no imaginary or metaphorical ghost. It's the real thing. Suddenly, the suit's previous owner is everywhere. This book was the bomb. It was the bomb. I remember when it first came out, I still lived in Kentucky. I seen it at the library, and I was like, oh, that book looks interesting. And I remember the librarian saying to me, a lot of people have been wanting to read this, but no one has checked it out. And I was like, I'll check it out then. And at the time, I worked like the midnight shift at a children's residential home. So we really didn't have a whole lot to do, like, you know, throughout the night. So we would take things to entertain ourselves, and reading was a big thing that we done. And I took it, and oh my goodness, I was like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys have got to read this book. It is so good. It is so good. So I really, really highly recommend that if you're into spooky ghost stories. But if you're not, then don't read it because it's a spooky ghost story. So the last book I want to talk about is one that I've read recently. And I know that Kenyatta from Kenyatta Creates has read it because she's talked about it on her channel. And that is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. So the little blurb says, the secrets lurking in a rundown roadside motel ensnare a young woman just as they did her aunt 35 years before. This one was such a good book. It was, that atmosphere was so good. Yeah, it was just like, all of Simone St. James's books that I've read have been good. But this one has that spooky vibe, spooky atmosphere. My sister really liked it as well. So there are 6 spooky reads that you can listen to while you're working on all of your Halloween makes this month. Plus, I gave you some additional ones by some of my favorite authors that were pretty spooky themselves as well. So if you guys read any of these books or have read any of these books, let me know down in the comments below, because I really do love to read, which now I pretty much listen so I can crochet too, because I don't want to give up one for the other. And by listening to the books, you can combine both worlds and they live harmoniously together. So that's it for day number 2 of Podcasters Week. I'll be back tomorrow with my regular podcast. And I believe that might be it for the week, unless I can come up with some other ideas to do for the rest of the week. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.